Celebrating 49 years on the air, award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, Mississippi 4-H makes national history with its first ever Slingshot Championship. Plus, in a touching story, farmers come from far and wide to help one of their own. In Southern Gardening, Eddie heads to Meridian, showcasing a couple of tropical beauties. And in our encore feature, pain management for animals in the American food chain. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. We begin with a different kind of story about an event that made history in West Point, Mississippi recently. Something poetic about that. The nation's first ever statewide 4-H slingshot competition. Of course, slingshots have been around pretty much forever, and shooting sports have been part of the 4-H picture for a long time, managed by Mississippi State University Extension. But now slingshots are in the mix, less expensive and more fun for many of the kids 8 to 18 that entered this very first competition. We took our cameras out to the Jimmy Bryan 4-H Youth Complex and watched some eager young shooters take aim at targets set up just for them.
Well, welcome everybody, and good morning. Good morning. So this is something that we've been looking forward to for about a year and a half, I guess now, since we started this new discipline.
And with those words from event coordinator Reed Nevins, history is made. The nation's first 4-H Slingshot Championship, a new addition to the family of 4-H shooting disciplines. This morning, about 50 competitors in different age categories get started with a short quiz in the interest of safety and clarity on the rules. And then it's off to the nearby woods and a speed course where the shooters are salivating for some real action.
Think about it when you were a kid, you know, you had a lot of fun. I say most kids probably had a slingshot at some point or another. Well, it's just a lot of fun to shoot. But our main thing is with this 4-H program is the safety aspect of it. It's just another tool for us to use to get kids involved, get them outdoors.
And what did some of the 4-Hers think?
I've been involved in lots of shooting sports disciplines with rifles, archery, and it was fun to see this new, different style, especially with the simplicity of it. It's easy to get into, and it was fun to just hop in and do something. It felt more simpler in comparison to other shooting sports disciplines. It was just relaxing.
It was really amazing. I was glad I did it. I wasn't going to do it originally, and then I decided, I was like, why not? You know, it's fun. It just gives me something to do, and it's something new I learned, so it was really good.
It was a little different than I thought it was going to be. I think it went really well, though. The speed course was really fun because we were in the second group to do speed course in the state, so that was really good. And then the woods course was really fun. I loved how everything was set up.
Pass the word about 4-H Slingshot. It is fun, it's affordable, it gets kids outdoors, and you make a lifelong friendships. And it's win, win, win all the way around.
And so history is made. We hope you enjoyed this quick turnaround news version of the story. We had multiple cameras out on the course, though we'll have a feature-length version of this story as we get a little closer to the holidays. We'll let you know when it's coming up, and we will have a lot of fun with that one. In other news, a story that exemplifies the caring nature of American farmers. We all know they're providers at heart, and whether they're here in Mississippi or elsewhere, known for taking care of the nation and one another. In this story, a Minnesota farming community joined together to help out one of their own struggling with a brutal ALS diagnosis, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Most who are diagnosed with it survive only another 3 to 5 years. In this case, the farmers took time out of their busy harvesting season to lend him a helping hand. Kevin Wallivan reports.
The morning sun struggled to break through the fog, but not long after sunrise, you could see sugar beet lifters, tractors, and truck drivers come through the mist. They all came today for their popular friend and farmer, Mark Holy, a giant of a man in size, personality, and heart.
He's very strong. What he believes in, he stands by it. I'm very proud of him.
Today, he and his family watched as fellow farmers, more than 100, made quick work of 400 acres of beets.
It's bittersweet. I wish I could do it, but God has a plan.
It was just July that Mark was diagnosed with ALS. It's progressed quickly. Time is short, and while it has robbed so much, the disease hasn't taken away Mark's grateful spirit.
I want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you so much. It helped my family at a time we're hurting.
Son Ryan will soon be taking over the farm. He was out lifting beets today.
Yeah, nice crop. Yep.
He watched longtime neighbors show up for his family, asking for nothing in return, except maybe a little lunch brought to their truck.
It's a great place. Great neighbors, great families, great people. Yep.
It means everything. You don't want to have a horrible disease like this, but when people step up like this, we were just amazed. We were so thankful. This is love in action.
The thing is, so many farmers offer to help, they had to cut off the trucks at 95.
They're all harvesting themselves, so for them to take a day out of their busy schedule to come and help us is, it means the world to us, it really does.
Because I thought everybody's going to be digging beans, but they just said, no, we'll be there. And the friends and neighbors just said, we'll be there, and they all pitched in. It was really nice, very, very nice.
Ryan says neighbors will harvest most of the sugar beet crop today, but not all. A few acres will sit for a couple of weeks as the family marks their journey into their father's own season of autumn.
That's kind of why we're leaving some beets for ourselves this year, just so we can do it one last time together. Hopefully you can be out in the field and just one more.
By the time harvest was going full speed today, that fog started to lift, revealing a field of abundance. Neighbors proving what it means to give and live.
It's just, it's unbelievable.
On the lighter side, in this week's Southern Gardening segment, tropical beauties, the kind that show up brilliantly and colorfully in the landscape. Here's Eddie Smith with 2 eye-popping varieties.
Finding plants that thrive in shady garden spots can be a real challenge. Today on Southern Gardening, we're in Meridian, Mississippi at the home of Denise Temple, looking at 2 tropical beauties that bring both color and texture to her shade gardens. Curcuma, sometimes called hidden ginger, is a showstopper when it comes to tropical flowering plants. These members of the ginger family produce bright blooms that rise above bold, upright foliage. The flowers come in shades of pink, white, and even purple, and they can last for weeks at a time. In addition to the blooms, the foliage adds a lush tropical feel. These plants grow well in partial to full shade, and they prefer moist, well-drained soil. Curcuma thrives in our southern summers and can come back year after year if protected from hard freezes. Another ginger family plant that brings a different look to the garden is variegated ginger. Each broad, lance-shaped leaf is streaked with golden yellow and deep green, almost as if the plant has been painted by hand. The leaves arch gracefully from thick canes, giving the plant a soft, cascading effect that adds movement to the garden. While the plant rarely blooms in our region, the foliage alone is enough to steal the show. For southern gardeners looking to brighten up their shady spots, curcuma and variegated ginger are 2 dependable choices that bring both beauty and tropical flair to the landscape. I'm Eddie Smith. I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
Time for a short break right here, but stick around. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, something you don't hear too much about: pain management for animals in the American food chain. Pain meds for those animals are virtually non-existent, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But experts have long sought pain relief for such animals, though getting the FDA to approve it has been complex. Research into new options is being done, though. What do they look like? Find out coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith, and their right to make their own plans and arrive at their own decisions, and their ability and power to enlarge their lives and plan for the happiness of those they love. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership, that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Looks like a slight turnaround.
Very slight. Some commodities making gains while others still on the downside. We'll talk about it. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then, more reports from the USDA. What can they tell us? And finally, a deeper dive into row crops. An expert tells us what's moving the markets. So, markets closed split, livestock up while row crops still trending down. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, lumber up 26 bucks, nearly a 5% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, soybeans, down 11 3/4 cents. That's more than a 1% decrease from the previous week. Several USDA reports dropped last week, giving info on the current U.S. livestock situation. In short, we're seeing a decline in slaughter this year. Doesn't mean we're running out of meat, but it does mean there's less going onto the market. Here's what they said. In the quarterly hogs and pigs report, inventory down 1% compared to September 1st, 2024, but up 1% from June earlier this year. Breeding inventory down 2% from last year and slightly down from June. Market hog inventory also down 1% from last year, but up 1% from June. The June through August pig crop down 3% altogether compared to last year. In the livestock slaughter report, overall commercial meat production in the United States down 10% compared to last year. Of that, beef production down 12% and cattle slaughter down 14%. Veal production 38% lower, pork production down 8%, and slaughter down 7%. And lamb and mutton production down 5%. In the poultry slaughter report, the ready-to-cook weight, also called certified wholesome, down 1% compared to last year. Preliminary total live weight during August this year also down 1% compared to the last. Of those, young chickens down 1%, mature chickens down 5%, turkey down 7%, and ducks up 11%. In our row report this week, we hear from a market analyst about our major grain crops, wheat, corn, and soybeans. Prices falling on all three, and it seems there's a global reason behind it as well as general harvest pressure.
But I think the bottom line is, we bounced a little bit when the Russia-Ukraine rhetoric on the war popped up again. Remember, we shot up big when Russia invaded Ukraine. So I think a little bit of war premium in. But I think the wheat actually drug the corn market down. But Russia continues to sell wheat aggressively for money for the war. The EU crop is bigger. Australia's crop is coming at us. Argentina's crop's coming at us, all bigger. So that I think we're looking to North America to see if we have the weather problem in the spring. Yeah, fundamentally it's negative, but I think you reach a level where you're at fair market value, and I think that's what the wheat market is. While it can't really go down a lot, hasn't really for a few months, but when you rally, the end users aren't spooked, get up there, but the funds are short about 90,000 wheat, and so I think that's a little bit scary if they ever come out of those shorts, but they need to be spooked by something. Our neighbor is the one that's bought about a third of our exports on corn, so big exports, but it's from our neighbor. Argentina's selling corn. We've got a lot of competition, so I think the biggest supportive thing on the corn market is the fact that the producer shed the old crop supplies, but at this price level really doesn't work for a lot of people, and no interest in selling corn at harvest at these prices. That's what we're seeing. Well, I tell you, we might be very similar to last year. Remember, we put our biggest yield in August. Doesn't that sound similar? That's what we've done so far this year. And then what happened is the yield constantly got lower until we hit the January report. It looks like, so far from what we're picking up across the gut side of the Corn Belt, the corn yield just isn't there. In fact, it's down like 10, 30 bushels versus a year ago. So look for that to ratchet down. Carryouts probably go down. We've got the stocks and all position report next Tuesday, so the government's going to tell us what do we have for stocks in the U.S. So, it looks like that one usually isn't a big mover, but if anything, it maybe could be a little bit bigger on corn, a little bit smaller on soybeans. Don't look for that to be a market mover. I think it's really what is the real yield coming off the combine. Test weights are poor, so that's one. We do have big carries in the corn market, which is to the producer advantage. Here's what happened. The beginning of the week, Monday, Argentina took the tax off of their corn, soybeans, 24% on corn, 26% on beans. That made Argentina's farmer soybeans $3 higher a bushel, corn 50 cents a bushel. They sold it. The world market pressed lower on soybeans, and China bought like 150 million bushels of soybeans from Argentina. So I think the bottom line is when you look at that, we had a lot of negative news this week. Soybeans didn't go down. I always say it's more important how do you react to the news than the news. Well, remember, we probably have lost. China, our biggest buyer, bought 54% of our exports last year, 800 and some million bushels. They bought 0 so far this year. Usually they bought like 400 million bushels by now, so ask yourself how much did we lose? But if you look at it in the world perspective, I think you're shuffling some of these around. We lost big to China, but I think we'll pick up others' soybean demand. But is it enough? That's the question, because something in the world, it's a world market, and that's what we're looking at.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Looks like although harvest season going pretty well so far, we're dealing with international competition on prices. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. Here's a story we haven't done in some time. Consumers have taken a greater interest in how their food is grown and arrives on their table. But recently, the national discussion has joined the existing debate of pain management in animals being raised for food. Colleen Bradford-Krantz has more.
This Kansas cat is about to be spayed. This Iowa piglet is about to be castrated. One will be given medicine for pain, one will not. While pain medications labeled for use in livestock are almost non-existent, companion animals like Annabelle in Atchison, Kansas, go through most medical procedures with the help of short and long-term painkillers.
Within our small animal pharmacy, we essentially have 2 shelves full of different pain medications that we can use. In cattle, the only labeled product that is out there for pain or analgesia is Banamine transdermal, and the only label is for foot rot.
In recent years, however, Veterinarians, college professors, and livestock industry leaders have begun working to overcome the barriers that led to the lack of livestock pain medications.
Growing up anyway, on-farm pain management, I don't think was really anything anybody thought about. You know, if something was suffering really bad, then it just came down to, you know, maybe we need to end that animal's suffering.
Getting the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to approve painkillers for livestock, however, has been more complex than with non-food animals because of the rules designed to keep drug residue out of meat. In the past, veterinarians who wanted to ease pain in hogs, cattle, and other livestock were left with little choice but to use a drug in an extra-label or off-label manner. The responsibility landed on the veterinarian to ensure the drug didn't end up in the food supply.
Everyone wants to use it, but we need to have the research done so that we use it correctly.
Now that research is being done. The FDA has joined industry leaders in studying new options for livestock pain management. But approval of any drugs for livestock usually requires proof of pain and subsequent easing of pain with the medication's use. Banamine transdermal, the medication approved for foot rot, a painful condition in cattle, gained FDA approval in 2017, becoming the first officially approved painkiller in the U.S. for a food animal. Kansas State University participated in the research that helped gain that approval. The team has continued looking for a consistent way to prove when an animal is in pain.
So obviously it's difficult to assess pain in an animal because they can't talk and tell us how much pain they're in. So we have to rely on biomarkers of either behavior or the physiology of the animal. It's been difficult for us to try to assess behavioral changes objectively and to try to come up with a scoring system.
Research teams look for indicators of stress in the blood, such as cortisol, but it can disappear too rapidly to consistently measure. A second indicator of pain is skin temperature. Pain prompts a fight or flight response, which means blood is pulled toward the body's core. This Kansas State University thermal imaging video of a steer as it is being castrated illustrates the instant change in skin temperature. Some early work is also being done with facial recognition in hogs and other species. A program looks for changes in expression that might hint at an animal's suffering. Another test that shows particular promise uses a pressure mat to measure changes in an animal's stride length and weight placement.
So looking at the way the animals change the distribution of weight on their feet has actually been something that we can measure quite accurately, in addition to looking at differences in their stride lengths.
The National Pork Board is working with these university researchers and the FDA to pave the way for a pain medication for hogs in particular. This may become particularly important considering a few other nations have banned practices such as piglet castration.
Castration of pigs is a global conversation, not only here in the US, but there's a lot of discussion in the EU, in Australia, in New Zealand.
Hogs are castrated because the meat, when cooked, emits an odor known as boar taint, which surveys show 80% of the population find offensive.
We know that the procedure is a painful procedure for piglets, but what we focus on is looking at ways that we can either replace the procedure, refine the procedure, or reduce the pain.
Piglet castration has been refined some over the years. The surgery now typically takes place when the piglet is 3 to 5 days old. This timing seems to allow the piglets to bounce back most rapidly, particularly if they are still with their mothers.
What's urgently needed from a producer standpoint is a practical way to be able to implement these pain management strategies in a production system, because typically we're dealing with large numbers of animals.
Ideally, experts would like a medication that can be given to a sow, reaching her piglets via her milk a day later. The low dose in her milk should ease Piglet's pain during common procedures such as castration or tail docking.
We would be all about utilizing a product if in fact it showed that it worked and was beneficial and useful. The cost component, while always to some degree a factor, if it's better for our pigs, we'd be fairly inclined to use it.
Some veterinary clinics, the Atchison Animal Clinic in Kansas among them, have begun implementing the use of off-label pain medication with the more routine procedures on livestock.
Whenever we're castrating cattle or dehorning, we're going to administer pain medication. It's something that we feel very strongly about. Initially, we offered it as an option. Now we've kind of moved on to where it's just something that we do. The consumer can see the value of that and feel good about the way that these practices are done and how these animals are raised.
Very interesting. Good to see that kind of research being done. Well, next week, as we prepare for our Tree Farmer of the Year story later in the year, one of our favorite encores, tree farm economics.
We head to the peaceful town of Aberdeen, Mississippi. There we meet Bobby Watkins, whose tall pines planted more than 30 years ago are both his retirement income and his legacy.
Mr. Watkins was born to be a tree farmer. His love of the land sustains the here and now and will cradle generations to come. That's next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.